you. So, as some of you may or may not know, January is National Slavery and Human Trafficking Prevention Month. And so that's why I wanted to hop on here and just share a few thoughts and a few insights. The truth is, for anybody who's unsure what we mean by human trafficking, it can be defined as basically an act of force, fraud, or coercion where someone then obtains a form of labour or even a commercial sex act. I'm going to break that down for you because it's easy to roll off these terminologies, but I want you guys to really grasp a hold of what human trafficking is and what that looks like. So force is the easiest one. Force would be what you sometimes imagine human trafficking to look like. We've all seen different movies, and Hollywood was amazing at representing human trafficking a few years ago. But force is the obvious one where someone's hit over the head, smuggled into the back of the car, and then trafficked goodness knows where. Fraud would be more like someone approaching a girl saying that they've got this modelling job for her, and she goes to a venue thinking it's to do photography, and they start taking photos of her, but then begin to tell her, well, actually, you can really make it in the trade if you're willing to go topless. And so she takes one step further, and then they begin to say, well, actually, if you really want to make it in the modern industry, you're going to have to sleep with the photographer or with the producer, and then we can really make you a star. And the girl ends up in a trafficking situation through fraud. And then the last one is coercion, and this is one that we've certainly faced a lot in One by One with the lives that we've been helping. So coercion is more like blackmail. It's where someone has got something that they're holding over someone in order to obtain and manipulate and control them. So the obvious one is what happens to us in Pakistan, where people are in debt bondage, and then they feel trapped into a situation where they have to start paying off a debt, and they have to work in bonded labour until they pay off the debt. The problem is the debts have such ridiculous rates upon them, interest rates, that the debt becomes just an unrealistic reality, and the person is never able to pay it off. And so coercion is a big one in human trafficking, certainly in terms of the world that One by One's working in. Modern slavery and human trafficking is thought to be the world's third largest criminal enterprise. Do you know that it actually makes over $150 billion every year for criminals? This is why it's carrying on around the world. This is why it's growing at an exponential rate. The truth is, human trafficking, everything's hidden. It's a very hidden crime. And so finding true and genuine statistics on it is very difficult. But the reality is a lot of organisations believe that there's over 40.3 million people trapped in modern day slavery and human trafficking at any point in time. And actually, sadly, there's more people stuck in slavery today than there ever has been in human history before. Now, if that's not a reason for me and you to say, okay, what can I do to help? What can I do to get involved? I want to raise my voice against human trafficking. I want to make a stand against slavery in my day and generation. And that's why I wanted to hop on here, because actually you guys are the heroes in this story, because every single one of us can begin to raise our voice to fight against human trafficking and modern day slavery. About 16.3 million people are stuck in forced labour today. 15.4 million are forced into marriages, which they didn't agree to. 4.8 million are forced into sexual exploitation, and 3.8 million are experience domestic servitude amongst private homes. That's what the 40 million people breaks down to. As you saw from that, the biggest of that, 16.3 million, is forced labour, and that is why One by One wants to work in this exact arena. It's the biggest problem. It's the biggest form of modern day slavery, and that's why we want you guys to join with One by One. I'm going to bring on a friend of mine in a short moment. His name's Todd Schumacher, and he's been an incredible hero. He pastors a phenomenal church out in America, and I'm going to bring him on shortly. But just before I do, let me just share a couple of stories from the kids that we're working with. So that sometimes when you hear about 16 million people or 40.3 million, it's so big that we can almost, well, it's too big of a problem. And we can sit back and say, actually, it's too big of an issue. I can't possibly make a difference. But oftentimes when we bring it down to that one kid, actually, it's enough to make us realize I've got a voice and I can use my voice. I can use my platform to make a difference here. So let me just share a couple of our kids' stories, and then I'm going to bring Todd on to share with us as well. So I've changed their names just to protect their identities, but it'll still give you their background. So Felipe's father had been working in a brick factory for 15 years. And all of a sudden he'd become ill with a life-threatening disease, so borrowed some money in order to pay for some medical treatment. And due to the interest rate upon the loan that he took from a brickmaster for the last 15 years, he's now been paying off that debt. He was able to get the treatment, hallelujah, but now he's forced, and his whole family are forced into labour. And so Felipe was born into slavery. That means he's never had a day of education. He's never had a normal childhood. He's never known what it is to celebrate his birthday or play outside with friends. But for 7 days a week, for 14 hours a day, he makes bricks. That's Felipe's story. Meanwhile, there's Mia, who's 5. 5-year-old Mia's father was also working in the brick factory. He inherited the debt from his parents, so Mia's grandparents. She's now 3rd generation slave. He took a loan of 120 to pay for medical fees again, and they've been paying that off ever since. So again, 5-year-old Mia is working there in the brick factory. Then there's Neva. Neva's father took a loan of £360. That was it, £360, and that was 18 years ago. He did it so that he could actually build a house for his family, not knowing what that loan would then lead into for his family. Not only did his family not manage to get the house with that, but now they're stuck in slavery. And for the last 11 years, Mia, along with her 3 sisters, have been working in the brick factory to pay off that debt that her father took, not knowing what it would lead their family into. And let me share one more. One more is 10-year-old Selena. Selena was born into slavery along with her other siblings. She's got 1 brother, and she's also got a sister. Her father had moral obligations years ago, so long before he had a family of his own. He had moral obligations to pay his sister's dowry when she got married. And so he didn't have any money, but he needed £75. That was all. £75 for the dowry. He paid for it. And as a result of that, 32 years later, 32 years later, him and his family, including 10-year-old Selena, are still working in that brick factory to pay off that debt. This is why we are passionate. This is why we need all hands on deck. We need your help. We need your voice. We can't do this by ourselves. You guys are who we need to help make an end to this. I'm going to bring Todd on because I know that he's super passionate about this too. So I'm going to bring Todd into the conversation because I want to get his thoughts and his insights into this as well. So Todd, I've been sharing with everyone why I'm passionate about human trafficking. I've even shared some of the kids' stories that One by One's been working with. But I would love to get your insight. Obviously, you're a pastor in Louisiana, and you've been an incredible supporter of One by One. And so I just want to firstly honor you for that. But I want to ask, why are you, a pastor in the middle of Louisiana, why are you passionate about human trafficking?
So I've always had a heart for the lost and the lonely and the left out. But when I was in college, actually, Becky, you don't even know this story. I worked for a guy who worked overseas in Africa in the oil industry. And he told me the stories of the sex slave trade with children in Gabon, where he was working. And I mean, it rocked me to the core, and then let's fast forward to where I am today, or a few years ago when I met you and met your husband, Matt, and saw what you guys are doing and remembered that, and then realized that that's still going on today, but that I can make a difference. Yes. And the reality is, I think anybody with half a heart, when they hear the stories, they're moved. It's not that they maybe lack passion, but they maybe lack opportunity, or realize that they can actually do some significant good in people's lives, and these people's lives that are in bonded slavery, in trafficking. So when that opportunity arose for me, connected with you guys, I'm like, this is a no-brainer. This is an opportunity for me, for my family, for our church to make a big impact in stopping trafficking and really impact people's lives, which is what we're all about.
Absolutely. So has there been one moment that kind of stood out to you? Was there one sort of story or one life that really captured your heart, that made you think, you know what, I've got to do something to make a difference here?
So when I heard this story about the family that the wife needed a C-section, was working at the brick factory, didn't have the money to pay for that, went to the owner of the factory, took out the loan, not realizing the implications long-term for that. And then there they are years and years and years later, still indebted, with an inability to go anywhere and do anything other than work every day at that brick factory. That is slavery. Yeah. We can call it bonded labor. It is what it is. And that, when you told that story, it stuck me.
Yeah. And that was actually one of the first ever families that I spoke to in one of the brick factories. We now work across 50 brick factories, but one of the first families was that family. And I remember saying to them, how did you get into this situation? And they shared about the cesarean, but stood before me was the teenage son, who was the result of the cesarean. So for 13 years, they'd been paying off the debt of $150. That's all the C-section cost, $150. And I think that first family sort of just captured my heart of, this is a normal family. I think anybody can put themselves in a situation of, you're in an urgent situation, you need medical care, you don't have the money to pay for medical care, and so you do the only thing you know to do. You go for help wherever that comes from, not knowing then the implications upon not only their lives, but their children and their children's lives. And I think the brutal reality of bonded labor is the debt is a lie. The debt's already been paid off 100 times over, but they're stuck in this mentality through coercion, like I was talking about before. It's coercion that these people feel controlled and manipulated, that they are still owned by a brickmaster under this lie of them owing a debt to them, and a debt that they'll never be able to pay off. How do you think people can make a difference? Because it's easy for people who are all over the world, so people like us who are out there doing crazy stuff. How can a general person, a doctor, a nurse, a teacher, a banker, an office worker, a mom with 3 kids driving her insane at home, how can normal people get involved and be the heroes in this story?
First, just hear the stories just like this, because if you're alive, that's going to move you. You know, I think of my wife, like the story that she told me. I didn't even hear it from you. You told her about the little girl that was assaulted and I believe ultimately murdered in the brick factory, and just that compassion. If that compassion is moving you, don't let that emotion be a fleeting one. Partner with an organization that's doing something. The reason that I'm so passionate is not simply out of sentiment. It's because now we get to put feet to those emotions that are God-given emotions, where he stirs our heart and says, this is wrong. Yeah. But what do you do next? Partner with an organization. Partner. The reason that I love partnering with One by One is because I see what you guys are doing. I've seen the videos. I've gotten personalized videos from the Safe House. I've seen firsthand what you're doing. So for me to be able to be a part, and not just me, and that's the cool thing, like our whole church has given tens of thousands of dollars to make a big impact. It is so fulfilling, first of all, to write the check, or who writes checks, you know, send the money, to send the money digitally, to send that, but then to see in short order over a short period of time, the implications of what that really, let's just be honest, small sacrifice made in such a big way in the lives of the people that One by One and other organizations like it are doing. Like it's huge. So for me, it's going, be informed and then be involved. And it's not as hard as you think to be involved. Be informed, this is part of it, but be involved. Yeah. Find out, okay, what is One by One doing? what can I do to help support them? Because it's more than just financial. I mean, there's a variety of ways that you can help. First of all, pray for them. Consider obviously financially supporting. They do trips to help, build their community, even in Kenya. So just get plugged in, find out what they're doing, be involved. And the implications are huge. It's personal satisfaction is like on the lower end of it, because what really matters is the lives that are being impacted.
So true. So true. A friend of mine recently said this, and it's so stuck in my heart. They said, one raindrop never feels responsible for a flood. One raindrop never feels responsible for a flood. And the truth is, I think sometimes little old me and you doing our normal job, we can feel like that raindrop of, well, what difference can it really make? But actually, if all of us got involved, if every single one of us began to raise our voice to speak up against human trafficking, to make other people aware, the reality is every single one of us could well have come into contact with someone who's been trafficked, whether it be through a nail salon, whether it be through, I don't know, some restaurant somewhere. Many of us may well have even come into contact and we don't even know it. But if every single one of us start to speak up against this, if we all start to raise our voice, anything as little as sharing this on your social media or sharing posts and information about human trafficking, about 40.3 million people today being trapped in slavery. Do you know, Todd, there's more people in slavery today than there ever has been in human history. Yeah. And if that doesn't frustrate us to our core, then I don't know what will. But if every single one of us begins to make a stand, become aware of where we're buying our clothes from, become aware of what we're buying and who we're buying from, become aware of what's going on around us. Like you say, beginning to pray into it, being aware about it, donating to organizations. One by One's an obvious one because I run it and I know what we do. But there's amazing organizations out there that work in this as well as us. So find an organization that you love, that you know, that you trust, and donate towards them to help make a difference in lives, because together our raindrops become the flood. And together, if everybody starts sharing this video, if everybody starts speaking out against human trafficking, this is the month. This is Human Trafficking Awareness Month. So January, I am challenging you all, even if it's just sharing this video, I am challenging everybody who's watching this, do a post on your own platform about human trafficking and about how you can get involved, how you can make a difference. Find organizations that you know and you love and you trust and donate to them, support them, get behind them, champion them. And it really, together, we can be that flood and make a stand against human trafficking. Todd, thank you so much for your time. Sorry that it took me forever to get you on here, but I'm so grateful for you for joining us. And to everybody who's tuned in, who's been watching this live, and also to everyone who's going to watch this back in a few hours' time, thank you so much. We want you to become a part of the movement of One by One. Together, we can make a difference. Together, we can end exploitation, but it's going to take all hands on deck. If you want any more information about how you can get involved, check out the website onebyone.net and see how you can personally make a difference, because together we can end exploitation. Thank you so much for joining with us, and I can't wait to see you all again soon. Take care.